the sledgehammer last year when I was cutting concrete. As you would expect, using it at work was a damn good workout. In particular, the best workout I got with the sledgehammer while cutting concrete came from wall sawing. I've been spending the last couple of months trying to recreate the types of body motions used with the sledgehammer for strength training purposes. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a personal trainer. I'm just a blue-collar guy who likes to work out when I'm not working. Now, when we did wall sawing, the number one job we had was cutting out a new doorway. And as you can see, the average doorway should be at least a foot higher than the average person. However, we never cut the doorway out as one big piece. Instead, what we would do is cut it into 6 by 8 inch blocks. Just a reminder, these blocks were solid concrete. So despite being relatively small in size, they were still really dense and really heavy. Which is why they only cut all the way through on one side and sent somebody else with a sledgehammer to pound them out from the other end. Hammer! Now, because the blocks were still somewhat attached at the corners, you had to do quite a bit of pounding in order to break them loose and pound them out. And you always want to make sure you start from the top, because if you start from the bottom, the rest of the blocks might collapse on your coworkers or yourself. Now, this is just my residential door, so I'm not actually going to hit it because I'd like to keep my door on its hinges. But just to demonstrate, when you're going for the first top row of blocks, you're always reaching pretty high up. When it comes to the first set of blocks, it's going to take well over 20 strikes to get them loose, let alone knock them out. And once you get towards your shoulder and hip height, you're not reaching up anymore, but you are still using your body to turn into it more at a parallel level. Of course, once it gets down to waist height, a lot of people just like to pull the blocks out outright because it's a lot easier once you get there. But now that I've explained to y'all how that job works, I'm going to show y'all what I do to replicate that for a workout. And this should go without saying, but you don't actually want to swing the hammer full force for your home workouts. Hammer! When it came to knocking the top row of blocks out, you want to start with the hammer right behind the ankle. One hand on the end for balance, one hand in the middle for control. And real quick, the arm that you're using to control is the one that's going to get worked out with both of these exercises. Once you're in your starting position, you want to pull up and over your head and shoulders, which should look something like this. Once you get it in this position, you want to kind of swing it in an arch, as though you're about to strike the top of a wall. Remember, you want to make sure you're getting full of the control and extension when you reach the top. And finally, you want to try to bring it back down, slow and steady to your starting position with the head of the hammer right behind your ankle. And all together, it should look something like this. And one little thing I forgot to mention, for both these workouts, you kind of want to stand bladed and swing the hammer somewhat towards the side. That way, you're not just working out your arms and chest, you're also rotating your torso and getting a core workout in as well. And another disclaimer worth mentioning is you won't get as much out of just the hammer weight exercise alone as you would if you actually had a concrete wall to beat on. And of course, it's not as simple as just putting a tractor tire up against the wall, because there's no guarantee it's going to actually absorb the impact and not punch through the wall. Not to mention, you could possibly just miss the tractor tire entirely and hit the wall itself, which you certainly don't want to do. But finally, we have what I like to call baseball swings, because, do I have to explain it? As the name suggests, you kind of want to start with the hammer in the batter position, with the head about 1.5 feet away from the back of your head. And once again, one hand for balance, one hand for control. And once again, the hand that you're using for control is the one that's going to get the primary workout. So you need to switch it up to get the full effect. And just like the high arch swings, when you do the baseball swing, you want to get full extension and control as you follow through. And by the end of it, you want to make sure that the handle is pointing behind your butt. And after you're done, you bring the hammer back the way it came, controlled and precise, and do it all over again. Now, whenever I do these workouts, I like to do about 20 reps on each side, then take a break or move on to another type of exercise. These workouts are extremely good for your upper body and your core. And what I like most about these workouts is they're not only good for strength training, but for functional muscle use as well. I actually highly recommend this for athletes who are curious about strength training. And while I'm certain that baseball swings in particular are good for batting practice, because both of these workouts involve core rotation, this is primarily good for boxing. Just remember, take it steady, take it slow, and be controlled, because you don't want to destroy your house.